About 1:30, container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware, either on a train or by car. I've been in Baltimore Harbor many times.
By train or by car, the president claims to have used to travel over the now collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge via train. The bridge never had any rail tracks on it, so there were never any train tracks there. Biden also saying that the federal government should pay for the entire cost of rebuilding the bridge. Congressional lawmakers are expected to move quickly on a supplemental spending request to cover at least part of the reconstruction of that bridge. Back in 2007, Congress approved $250 million to rebuild the I-35W bridge in Minneapolis 2 days after it collapsed and killed 13 people. Joining me now is New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew, a member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. Are you going to move forward with another supplemental, do you believe, to pay for part of the cost of this collapsed bridge?
Well, this is what government should do. We want to make sure that we move as quickly as possible on this. So there was a great deal of wasteful spending in the last two omnibuses that we had. I didn't vote for either one of them. And more than wasteful, some of it was bizarre. But this is what we are supposed to do in government, public safety.
But isn't there money already allocated? I mean, hasn't there been money allocated toward transportation? Where's that money?
Well, there is money allocated, and that's what we've got to look at. How much money has been allocated? Can we use with existing funds? Do we need any other money to make sure this happens? It's important to know that because of the high interest rates, because of the inflation that we have under this president, both together, inventories are very low. Businesses and companies don't like to hold a lot of inventory, which means because of what's happening there in the Port of Baltimore, we're going to really feel it much more than you normally would. Their policies are going to affect us. He didn't cause the bridge to collapse, but he is going to cause a reaction that's not going to be as good as it should be. We want to do something like what we did do in Mississippi almost 2 decades ago, react quickly, intelligently, effectively. It doesn't mean just spend more money, but it also means to use existing dollars and to see if we need more dollars to get this done.
Yeah, that's really where I'm going. I'd like to know where the existing dollars are and how much is there. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg rushed to Baltimore after the disaster yesterday, meeting with emergency and state officials. He says that rebuilding will not be easy and it will not be inexpensive. Buttigieg, of course, faced criticism after waiting more than 3 weeks to visit East Palestine, Ohio, after the train carrying toxic chemicals crashed there, Congressman. How would you assess Buttigieg, the Department of Transportation Secretary, his reaction here?
Well, this is an election year, so he did react. Probably, if it was 2 years ago, it might have been a month before he went at all. So the bottom line with Buttigieg is that he's worried too much about personal pronouns, worried too much about DEI policies, worried too much about, being the cool kid on the block. This is not the Department of Transportation, and the Transportation Infrastructure Committee is not a social committee. This is about actual infrastructure and getting things done. And this has been a secretary that, quite frankly, even with the money that was allocated under the transportation infrastructure legislation, they're moving so slow on it because of regulation. We want to get these things going. So, I'm disappointed in the job that he does. It's obvious that it's not about tree equity. It's not about personal pronouns. It's about the safety and the transportation of the people, whether it's in East Palestine, whether it is this bridge, whether it is Boeing and all the issues that are going on there. And when the FAA was in front of our committee, asked a lot of tough questions because that's a woke company as well, worried about the wrong things. Marie, I would say, whatever color you are, whatever sexual orientation you are, whatever your heritage is, you want to be safe. And that's what, transportation should be about, and effective. And so we should hopefully have an effective recovery here. This is an area where we could, for once, maybe work in a bipartisan way. I don't know if that'll happen.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the issue of is there money already allocated is a question, because a lot of your colleagues are now pushing for more spending. and paying for this entire collapse. Politico was reporting that federal investigators in Florida are looking into transactions linked to President Biden's brother now, James Biden, as part of the criminal investigation of the failed healthcare company AmeriCorps. The feds are probing an effort by James Biden and his business partners to land Middle Eastern investments. You remember, he promised AmeriCorps that he would raise money for them in the Middle East. And James Comer says it was because he was able to do so because of the Biden name. DOJ officials in Pennsylvania were also reportedly seeking information about James Biden as recently as last year, investigating the Medicare fraud case, also linked to AmeriCorps. Biden's lawyer says that the president's brother is not under investigation in either state, Congressman. What can you tell us about your ongoing investigation in the Judiciary Committee?
Oh, we've been looking into this, and we're going to continue to do it. Let's everybody understand what this is about. So $600,000 went from a failed health company to James Biden. When he got a $200,000 package that was wired to him, he immediately wrote a check that day to his brother, Joe Biden, for the exact same amount of money, supposedly a loan. But there are no loan papers, so we don't know how it is a loan. What's also odd is the money that came from AmeriCorps did not go into his business account, went into his personal account. Also strange how he doesn't really know anything about healthcare, but he was promising that he could get Mideast investors involved and get them to invest in AmeriCorps, which also has problems in Pennsylvania with getting lots of Medicare payments that they should have never received. It's a bad company. This family and this president have the taint of corruption all around them. And I'm going to tell you this, the stuff with this family is worse than anything that happened in Watergate. And if Joe Biden was a Republican, he'd already be impeached.
Well, Tony Bobulinski testified that Joe Biden is the big guy, that they use the brand to make money. And you've got this structure of the deal, which, of course, Politico wrote about, with James Biden, between James Biden and AmeriCorps. It was very similar to the deal that the Hunter Biden and his partners did with CEFC. So, I mean, compare these two structures where, in other words, equity was promised to Joe, 10% held by H for the big guy. A board seat was talked about. Same situation with the AmeriCorps structure of that contract, where Joe Biden was talked about getting an equity in the company and getting a board seat. Congressman, do you see these two situations similarly?
They are parallel. And what is interesting in all this, more than interesting, really disturbing, Joe Biden originally, and Maria, you remember this, said he had nothing to do with his son's business dealings. He didn't know anything about it. And yet, when you really dig into it, now they don't have to admit that he was at meetings, he was at lunches, he was at golf outings. He obviously was involved. And it's really clear that he was involved. And it isn't just Tony Bobulinski. It isn't just Devin Archer. It isn't just Rob Walker. Man, there is so much smoke around this whole thing. You know that there's fire. These are real issues. I mean, it isn't just one individual saying this. He obviously was involved with these meetings. He was there. He is part of it. And I'll leave you with this, and I believe you know this already. Why is it that Joe Biden and his family and their associates have over $20 million that come in from Kazakhstan, Romania, Russia, China? Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. We're going to keep following it. I wonder if President Biden will address this with Congress. James Comer said he wants him to testify, but of course the White House has declined.
He will never testify. They're going to do everything to prevent him. We even want people to testify from the Department of Justice who are officials that were involved in slow walking the issues with Hunter Biden, and we're fighting to get them to testify.
All right, Congressman, we will watch your investigation. Thanks very much, Congressman Jeff Van Drew, this morning in New Jersey.